And so it never escalated except for one night. And we were coming back from a security patrol and we had an IED explosion. I mean, I remember that night like it was yesterday. And again, no one got hurt. A couple of people got TBIs, terminal brain injuries. But fortunately, our whole squad walked away clean, and we still say Happy Alive Day to each other on Facebook every year on that date to just remind ourselves that could have been the end of the night for all of us.
Yeah. Welcome everybody, this is Paris Harrington, another episode of Life Untold. Today we have a extraordinary guest. In my eyes, we have Mr. Christopher Reed. How you doing today?
Doing great, man, doing great.
That's good. What I would like to do, man, I would like to just start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Me today, as I sit, I'm what you can consider partially retired, but not really, because we only work a few months out of the year and take the rest of the year off. And so to fill my time, I of course have my YouTube channel and our farm now that, we have 40 acres out here in Southwest Virginia. And so it's a constant learning curve. And, we're just living that kind of homestead life. We got chickens, we had cattle, we got rid of the cattle, just wasn't our thing. And so we're still just trying to figure things out as we go for our new life now together. My wife and I, we just got married 2 months ago, so it's been great.
Okay. 40 acres, man. Did you think about the whole 40 acres and a mule thing, anything like that? You just decided to go with that random number or what?
Yeah, well, no, yeah, it was just random. At the end of the day, pure dumb luck as to where we wound up and how we got to this exact property was just luck. We were looking in a area for property. We knew we wanted acreage, 10 acres, 20 acres, no more than like 100, because that's just very difficult to manage. And this property just came across at the right time, is what's meant to be, will be kind of thing.
That is true. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull it back, back in time, right? So you grew up in Largo, Florida, correct?
Yeah, so my dad was Coast Guard, so growing up until I went to high school, I moved every 3 or 4 years. So I grew up military. So I grew up Florida, Michigan, Florida, Michigan, Florida. So he retired to Florida, and that's where I went to high school, was in Largo, Florida, Clearwater, Tampa Bay area.
We just heard a little bit about the moving part, but what was childhood like for Christopher Reed in your eyes?
Honestly, I say I had a great childhood. I had two very loving parents who are still together now. It's hard for a lot of people to say that kind of thing for their parents. So they set a great example for what a relationship is like, and sacrifice for one end or the other. Because as a kid, and when I say kid, I mean like 10 years and younger, my dad was out to sea all the time. Out of 21 years in the military, I'm pretty confident he was 12 years out to sea. So more than half of his military service, he was out to sea. And as a kid, I just always remember my dad would be home for, say, a month or 2 months, and then he'd be gone for 2 or 3 months. And he's home for 3 months, he's gone for 4 months, and he's back for 2 months. And it was just very random how the Coast Guard does stuff for his duty stations where he was at when I was a small kid. And then I have an older sister. I'm the younger of the two siblings. She always wanted to take care of her baby brother, right? Yeah. But also, she was going to be the one that was messing with me. No one else was allowed to mess with him, just her. So, she would always, put the beating on me and always have fun with the fact that she had a smaller baby brother to mess with, but also she protected me and kept me safe at the same time.
That's cool. And I can see that a lot. Me and my brother, we had that sibling rival. We was only like a year and a half apart, so it was more fights than anything. But, I think we got all the fights out the way when we were younger. Now older, we just kind of joke with each other a lot. So with Dad being gone all those years, do you feel like that at any time, smaller Chris, did he ever have any resentment, or did you always understand hey, Pops is doing something bigger in the bigger scheme or bigger picture for the family, for the country? Or was it kind of man, I wish my Pops was here, or what?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely as an adult looking back at that, it's definitely he was doing it for his service, his service to the country and all that type of stuff. As a kid, Honestly, I definitely don't have any memory of, my God, my dad's gone for months on end. It's really bothersome. It was just like our life was just that way for so long because it was from the moment I was born up until I want to say maybe 12, 11 or 12 is when he finally had a land station and wasn't any longer like that 3 months out, 3 months back type of thing. So it was just like the normal thing. Yeah, my mom did a great job, I say. She even went to school. She went to college, finished her college degree while my dad was doing that back and forth. So she was working her butt off to raise two kids, have a full-time job, get her degree, and support the fact that her husband's gone for months on end. As a little kid, I don't think it ever really affected me. It's not something I ever recall as like a negative or any kind of, my dad's gone type of thing,
It's you, sister, mom most of the time, but when we start getting into those teen years, all right, Christopher is growing into the young man that he's gonna be, starting to get into the stuff. What is teen Christopher like? Is he in clubs? Is he involved in different groups at the school, or are you a homebody? What is teen Christopher like?
So I'll say I went through a couple of different stages. As a younger teen, I think I did pretty okay. I wasn't real rebellious as a younger teen. I say that now because I had my stage. And everything went pretty good. Like, first year, 2 years of high school, I wasn't causing fights or doing anything like that. I was in a couple of different extracurriculars with school. I played guitar at the time. Then I later on joined the choir. So I had that. My big thing when I was a kid was church. I was a big part of the youth group. And very religious, and that was like what I put my heart and soul into quite a bit. And then I had some negative times. I want to say my senior year of high school, or it actually might have been that junior to senior transition, because I turned 18 the summer before senior year. So like all of senior year, I was 18, right? So, but that summer before, I was already 18. So now I'm like, well, hey, I can go to a club. Clubs, they got
Now,
18 and up. Oh yeah, I did that quite a bit in high school.
Okay.
And then that just, I never did anything stupid. I never did any illegal drugs, never smoked weed a day in my life until I was like 35. But I, smoked like a clove cigarette type of thing just because, kind of the cool thing to do, but also I never inhaled it. It was more of a taste type of thing. You're in a club, everyone's smoking a bunch of things. So, but like that was like the stupidest type of time that I ever had was like when I did that, I moved out of my parents' house. I kind of got a little rebellious for a while, and I was like, I'm joining the Marine Corps. I don't need you. I don't need your rules. My dad was very strict. He was very, very strict, which again, looking back, I love the fact that he was, but I think that that's what caused that little bit of a blip in my life of starting to go down the wrong path a little bit, but fortunately didn't go too far and recovered from it.
When you said that you got into the rebellious stage, so was it soon as you turned 18 that you felt the need to go and do that, or did you just feel like, hey, I'm an adult now, nobody can tell me what to do? Were your parents, and I guess the question I would be asking is, were your parents open to you doing, like going out and doing extracurricular activity, or were they just like, hey, you need to go straight from school to home, and then once you turn 18, you were like, hey, the floodgates open, it's mine for the taking?
No, I think it was always, as far as I remember, it was always like as long as I was doing good in school with grades, I had a lot of freedom. I could stay out a little bit later, again, as long as I'm waking up and taking care of the pool. Like my dad had a pool, aka I was the pool maintenance man. And as long as I was doing what I was supposed to do at home and I was doing good in school, they kind of didn't bother me much. And then I think it was just maybe a couple sets of friends that I was hanging out with that I thought were good friends at the time. And it's what ended up saying like, oh, you know what? We can go get our own place. We'll just rent a place. And now you got, two 18-year-old boys renting a place. Like, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's nothing good's going to happen there. Fortunately, I don't think it lasted very long. I don't really remember. My mom would be able to tell me to the minute of how long I wasn't in the house, but it was probably only a few months, like 2 or 3 months at best, before I moved back home. Because like taking care of a house by yourself at 18, like you don't have the right skill set to do it. In high school still, yeah.
So were you still dependent on like parents' money? Were you working during that time frame?
I was working, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I worked for as early as I possibly could. I even worked when I was 12. I had a paper out for a while, and I was the first like legal job type of thing that I had. And then as soon as like I was in high school and I hit 16, was able to work in the area in like an actual environment. I worked multiple jobs. I worked at mainly like fast food type stuff. I worked at Wendy's for a long time. I worked at another restaurant just doing bussing tables and stuff like that. But no, I was always a go-getter. Like I wanted to make money because I wanted to enjoy things. I wanted to buy things. I wanted to modify my car. I wanted to buy a better car. It was always my own money.
When you look back on it, what started prompting you to start looking into the military? So now we know that your dad was in the military. Mom was supportive of dad. Mom was doing school. So you saw a world where you saw college could be great. You could see that, the military could be great. But what prompted Chris to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to look at the military, Or was this always like the plan from a kid?
Yeah, so it was not a plan ever. It was, in fact, if anything, it was opposite. I was like, watch my dad be in the military as a kid. It's just not for me. But I did, when I finally was, knew what I wanted to do in life, I wanted to be a cop. I knew I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help keep drugs off the street. I wanted to help kids get away from abusive parents, wives get away from abusive husbands, stuff like that. Like those types of things really bothered me. Seeing, like a controlling guy, you see in high school, right?
Yeah.
Big tough football guy, he's got his girl on his arm and he's keeping her real tight. It's like, bro, relax, And so it was just my thing as I wanted to join the police academy, and that's what I wanted to do right out of high school. I was considering going to college for criminal justice and to pursue that as a career. One day, one of my buddies, he basically was like, hey man, I'm joining the Marine Corps. You should come PT with us. And I was like, hey. Okay, like what's PT? I don't even know what that means, Yeah. He's like, oh, it's physical. We can basically just go run. We'll do some push-ups and this. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'll show up. I'll do it. And so the very first time I showed up, and this is in Florida. I showed up in jeans and a T-shirt to PT in jeans, and not like running shoes, just regular shoes. I don't remember what they were. They're regular shoes. And we went on a 3-mile run, and I smoked everybody by like a good bit. And the recruiter, of course, was like, he was talking to me quite a bit, trying to get me to join. And I was like, no, it ain't gonna happen, blah, blah. I started a PT with him because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that exercise and the little bit of camaraderie that was going on with a few people there. One day, my buddy who had invited me to PT, him and I were at a mall, and there was a pewter, those like pewter license plates, real heavy duty, and it's got a Marine Corps emblem and tanks and a helicopter. It's real cool, like $30 license plate. And I'd already been thinking about it a little bit, and I was like, bro, if you buy me that license plate, I'll join the Marine Corps.
Get the hell out.
I swear, true story. So he did. He bought it for me. We put it on the front of my car, and we went down to the recruiting station, and I joined up. But originally, I joined up reserves because my plan was still to be a cop. So I said I'm going to join the reserves. Tampa has an amphibious unit there. And I was like, whatever that job is, I'll just join that reserve station, and I'll do that. And I did. That was my first sign on the dotted line was that. And it wasn't until maybe 2 months before going to boot camp that I changed my mind and decided to go full time. And I want to be military police, obviously, because I was like, I want to be a police officer. And again, the recruiter had been talking to me over now the past 9 months at this point. Hey, instead of reserves, you can do this. And I started to learn.
So were the recruiters actively asking you to switch? Because now that I've been a recruiter before, man, having a kid that comes and say I want to switch from reserve to active duty, it's like death to a recruiter, because it's like you got to discharge them. They have a chance to leave. So were they encouraging you to do it?
I'm trying to remember specifically, but what ended up happening was we had one of the recruiters, like my original recruiter, he left for at the time, I didn't understand what happened, and now being in the military and looking back, he did something stupid, probably with a younger female or something like that, correct, and he got relieved of his command. And so we had this new guy come in, and he was this big Jack Gunny, and I remember him coming in and just looking at my paperwork and looking at, is at PT one day, and he's like, so what do you want to do when you join? And I was like, plan on going to the reserve station, and I'm going to be a police officer here in town. He's like, you're open contract. What are you talking about? And I said, what? Woo! I was like, what? Jeez. And so long story short, thank God we had that gunny that found that my original documents were actually open contract. And so I was like, well, what can we do? I said, I want to be a police officer. Long story short, he pulled some freaking strings somewhere because it was short notice. I mean, we're less than 2 months to leave for boot camp. And at this point, we had a third friend who was also joining, and he was going military police. And so we decided him and I would go in on the buddy program together. And he worked his magic. I'll tell you, that recruiter was probably the best human being for me, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know where my career would have gone, where my life would have gone. It definitely would have been a different story.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of recruiters, when they come straight on to recruiting duty, their passion to want to help people is there. The more they're on recruiting duty, it takes a special individual to be able to want to still help, because it becomes about numbers. Somebody, they call it the monkey on your shoulder. You always got to make mission. I was blessed enough where, obviously, people say I have the gift of gab, right? I always told people, if you take care of the people around you, natural stuff will happen. People sometimes say I'm the luckiest person on the face of the earth, but I don't know. I just take it as a grain of salt. But I will say that you were definitely fortunate to have that happen, because, man, that is a big deal.
Yeah.
So what was your mom, dad, knowing Christopher's mind? Even though Chris was rebelling at the time, Chris is like, no, I'm not. You probably been saying this since you were a kid. I'm not joining the military because of Pops. I'm going to go do this. When you told them you signed up for the military and you actually did it, because we know 90% of people that say they're going to do it never do it.
Right.
What were your parents' first reaction? Do you remember?
Well, I'll tell you, my mom is like the stereotypical, oh my God, my baby boy, he's gonna die in the war. She was just so scared of me joining the military, especially the Marines. Like, that's not just joining the military, that's joining the Marines. We were first to fight. And so she was extremely concerned, to say the least. My dad, I'm sure that was happening inside of him, but he definitely held his resolve and was much more like, I'm proud of you for what you're doing. I'm happy for you. I can be here if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think he didn't really show much emotion in regards to me joining the military like my mom did.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I remember my dad telling me when I signed up, man's got to be a man. You got to do what a man got to do. I was like, that's so typical, right? My mom, I knew she was going to be someone I had to convince. So I'm like telling the recruiter, you're going to show up at a certain time.
Oh, yeah.
My mom opens the door. She shuts the door. When she sees the Marine recruiter, she goes in the back. She doesn't come out. She does not talk to him. And I went in the back, and the recruiter had already prepped me. Hey, man, this is what you're going to say when your mom tells you no. Mom, are you going to take care of me for the rest of my life? She said, son, I'll always take care of you. I've been taking care of you. I said, Mom, when I want to go to the club, will you give me $200? When I need my car note, are you going to give me $400? If not, I need you to sign this document. And she looked at me, she was crying, and she just signed it. So I definitely can relate to what you're saying. So we go through that, and Christopher Reed, you go to Paris Island or San Diego? Which one did we end up going to?
Paris Island.
Paris Island. That's where they say the real Marines are made. All Marines are made. But real Marines are made at Paris Island, right? So so what was that like, going to boot camp, knowing that you are the same person that are out here smoking people in your jeans and your shoes? What was it like going to Marine Corps boot camp? Was it as easy as you thought it was, or did you think it would be easy?
Physically, it wasn't any more challenging than I thought it would be, but my recruiters definitely prepped me for that. I mean, I knew it was going to be, the hardest thing I've ever done physically in my life, but more so mental, right? That's all boot camp is mental. And my cousin just left for Coast Guard boot camp, and that's what I told him. I was like, buddy, it's not the physical, your run time is, you can improve that. That's going to happen with time, but it is a mental game, especially Marine Corps boot camp. Like, their goal is to break you down as a human being and then rebuild you as a Marine. And so, it was way harder than I could have ever imagined it being mentally. And my buddy who I joined the Marine Corps with, not the one I went on the buddy program with, because him and I were on the buddy program, but the one that bought me the license plate that actually caused me to join the Marine Corps, he lasted 2 days in boot camp.
So we're saying last thing, like he just got moved to a different platoon, or you talking like he left?
Left, gone. I don't know who called who, but he got out.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh no, you good.
Why do I keep getting balloons that
You're
just
good.
popped up.
Anything that happens in between, we can edit it. So you're good, bro. I promise.
Did you see
You're
the
good.
balloons pop up on my screen?
Yeah, but I think it's gestures. You know, they have these gestures now. Where
Oh, so it's like
just
something that I
hold
did
your
with my
phone.
hands?
Nah, you got a MacBook, I'm guessing.
I do. Yeah.
So MacBook, you can hold a thumb up. It'll give you a thumb. Celebrate all type of stuff.
Okay.
Bro, Apple is amazing, bro.
See, I didn't know that, and I'm like, why are there balloons going off around me right now? What's happening?
Yeah, bro. Apple is going amazing. Hey, shout out to Apple on this. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
all
so
right.
you said he ended up leaving boot camp. Did all of y'all leave at the or for boot camp at the same time?
Yeah, so I can tell you exactly what happened to my understanding. So basically, that night before you go to boot camp, they put you up in a hotel before you go to MEPS, and him and his dad had never had a good relationship. It was extreme. His dad was a single dad, and he was a rebellious teenage boy. You know, joining the military. Their heads butt all the time. And long story short, that night before we left for boot camp, him and his dad had a huge coming together, son, I'm so proud of you for what you're doing type of thing. Well, then, as you know, you get to Marine Corps boot camp, you get one phone call home to let them know, you read a script, you tell them exactly, I have arrived at the Paris house, and
Yeah.
whatever happened on that phone call, my buddy let his dad know that he couldn't do this anymore. He wanted to be back home with his dad. Like, how do you leave Marine Corps boot camp? Like, excuse me, I quit. That doesn't work. And then, so there was a couple phone calls made to who knows, Congress. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden he got taken out and left. And he told me, like, the second day of boot camp, he's like, I'm getting out of here. I can't do this. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Bro,
license plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I will say that it does take a lot of movement for it to happen because. I tell people the fastest way out of boot camp is just to graduate. Don't try to look for a way out.
Yeah.
Once you step foot on those yellow footprints, I mean, it is go time. And
Yeah.
I like to put emphasis on the parents. You have to
Support.
whatever the pop said on that phone. It could have been something crazy. It could have been anything. But I mean. Having that right mind frame going forward with it is detrimental to a person going to Marine Corps boot camp. So, do you have a favorite time at boot camp or your hardest time? I wouldn't say favorite. I know years later we laugh about a lot of the stuff, but
Oh yeah.
do you have a time that you would like to share where it was just like, man, this is not it,
Well, so at first I was always trying to fly under the radar, right? That was like what my recruiter told me. It's like, don't try and stand out too much. But again, my athleticism at the time, not going to say it's the same today, but my athleticism at the time was I was a rabbit. I was one of the faster ones, and I was a pretty good natural leader. And so they ended up making me a squad leader and eventually, the guide. And it's once you're going into those positions, you're not under the radar. You are front and center. If anyone messes up below you, now you're paying for their stuff. So, I mean, in terms of like a specific time, no, not really. Just that kind of motion of, okay, I'm going to try and stay under the radar, but I also didn't want to like underperform for myself. I wanted to give all I could, when we're doing a PFT and trying to get a 3-mile run in 18 minutes and 100 crunches and 20 pull-ups. And I was like, why would I not go for all those maxed out numbers? Try and beat. Why am I not trying to beat the guy in front of me? But that, like I said, that eventually led to me kind of getting promoted within the platoon and then becoming a guide for a while.
Yep. So when that happened, you push forward through boot camp, you graduate, and I never can miss this moment. What was that feeling like graduating from boot camp? Only 1% of America's population can claim the title of being a U.S. Marine. So what was that like for Chris Reed to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a different person now. You know what I mean? It's literally what it is. And you go into boot camp as Chris Reed, you come out of boot camp as Private Christopher Reed, or Private First Class, or whatever your case is. And you are a new human. You have rebranded yourself, and you've joined this club of crazy people who are, crayon eaters, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was just rebranding your whole life now. But I remember leaving boot camp and like it's so hard. Like every Marine does the same thing. I'm pretty sure where they leave and you go to eat dinner or lunch for the very first time, like a real meal outside of boot camp with your parents and your family, and you still, you munch it down so fast because you think you only have 5 minutes,
You're like, hey, the drill instructor's coming out.
Yep, and you're just everywhere you're standing at parade rest. It's just like a natural thing to do. So it's hard because it's like that transition of becoming a Marine happens, but then you still have to be a human being. You can't be a robot in life, and in the military, you can't. They don't want robots. They just want a robot right out of boot camp just for a little bit.
Yeah, just to prove a point.
Just to prove a point. That's literally about it.
So then you fast forward, we go through MCT, which is Marine Corps Combat Training, and military police school. So a big thing for you was becoming a cop, being able to serve the community, being able to help all the different situations that you were talking about earlier in this episode. So what was it like going through military police school, knowing, I'm not sure if you ever explored what actual police officers go through, but did it meet the expectations of what you thought you were going to do when you became a cop?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much exactly what I thought it would be, aside from the combat side of it, right? Because military police, we have two different sides. There's garrison and there's the deployed, right? So it was all that regular stuff, getting pepper sprayed or OC sprayed, learning the takedown techniques and weapons handling and weapons retention. That cop type stuff was expected. It was the convoy security and other things that were being taught and things that you go through that you're like, wait, I thought that was like a different job. You don't really think about it until it's happening. And then even so, like in MP school, they say write down the 3 top stations you want. And I don't know how much that they actually like send up the chain or not. I don't know if they just tell you to just write it down for your own feel good. But of course I did. I wrote down East Coast, West Coast, Japan, because I wanted to stay East Coast for family. West Coast, at least I'm still in America, and then overseas was like my last option. And I did. I got East Coast, but I got to a combat unit. And I knew when we were in MP school, when all those assignments came back and they knew where everyone was going, and me and my buddy, again, who was on the buddy program with, we knew that we were going to a unit that was going to deploy in like 2 months. It was like we were graduating, I want to say it was like mid-late December.
Of what year?
This of 2006.
Okay.
So it's like December 2006, and we get to our first duty station, which was Camp Lejeune, and we already knew ahead of time because they told us, like, hey, that unit's deploying. And so we get there, and we deployed for Iraq in February. It's like 6 weeks later. It's like beginning of February.
So I'll rewind it back because you made a pivotal point, which was you were expecting to be the cop. 10-6, 1038 reason for stop. You stop at a stop sign. My location is Mukapu Boulevard. Here's your ticket. I'll see you in court. And then they bring this combat side to you. What was your mind frame when you learned about the military police having a combat side? Were you afraid? Were you scared? Were you nervous? What was that like?
I honestly, I think it just so naturally transitioned, like from boot camp, where I had a really hard heavy, right? Our heavy was he was a little bit, he's a psychopath. You know what I'm saying? Like that man should have been in therapy on a nightly basis, and he was using us for therapy. But he was.
Just so the people that's listening, when you say heavy, what is that exactly?
So there's like 3 different hats, right? I can't remember what they're all called, but basically the heavy was like, this is your drill instructor who is going to mess you up all the time. He's going to make you hate life all the time. Not to say the other drill instructors don't, but some of them do it, and then it's like good cop, bad cop type thing. Only this guy is bad cop, bad cop, bad cop, bad cop, bad cop, right? He's like all the time is always like, you think 8 hours of studying and 8 hours of this is enough? There's someone in Iraq right now doing 16 hours, you little bitch. Like he's like always thinking someone else is going to kill you. That was like his mindset, which then imprinted into our mindset. And so between that and then MCT, Marine Combat Training, where it's like you're learning how to be a warfighter, and then going into MP school, like I guess it was already kind of naturally happening. Like I could go to Iraq. Like, because at the time, that's what was going on. I could go to Iraq. That could happen. And I was like, oh, that's happening. Here I go. This is happening. So, and again, I only was in the fleet for 6 weeks. So it's not like I got the normal military experience where some people get to the fleet and they're at their first duty station for 6 months or a year or 2 years before they ever deploy.
When all of that started occurring, you found out that you were deploying to Iraq. Let me remind you, that is in the pivotal point of the Iraqi war. And what were parents like? Would parents find out, mom and dad find out, Chris is deploying? This is parents' fear. So what would do you remember their reaction?
I don't remember their reaction specifically because it wasn't face-to-face. You know what I mean? But I knew my mom was not happy. She was extremely scared, and she was that mom where, like, she worked at the bank at the time, and like every single customer knew that her baby boy was in Iraq. Like she let everyone know because it was always on her mind, of like, no news is good news type thing. But I haven't heard from him in a few days because we might not be able to call out for certain reasons and stuff. And so it's like every day I don't talk to her, or she doesn't get a letter or whatever, because back then we actually wrote letters.
Yes.
It was like I can't imagine what she was going through, right? And like looking back at it now, at like my age that I'm at now and how life was, it's like, I'm sorry that I put her through that, but it was my service. It was my turn to serve the country, and that was what I was doing.
So when you did that, what is Chris' mind? What is your mind? You find out, you already know in MP school you're going to Iraq, but what was your mind? Let's fast forward and say, hey, I didn't even get to enjoy my first duty station. Look like a stud in the uniform, go out and party. I'm pretty sure y'all got the party before, but what was it like to get on that plane for the first time during that time frame?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the flight to Iraq like it was yesterday. That's definitely a memory that is stuck with me for all these years. I don't remember my second flight or other subsequent tours, but man, that first flight, I remember, like, we flew to Maine first, and then from Maine we flew to Kuwait, all on a commercial big jet, but it's it's just packed full of Marines. And then we land in Kuwait. We were in Kuwait for like maybe a full day. It was like overnight, and then I think the next day we left and we got on a C-130 and flew into the combat zone. And it was the whole time. I remember it all because it was one of the scariest moments in life. Like, I'm flying into a war zone right now. What's going on? Are bullets coming up at this plane as we fly? Is that something that happens? I don't know. Like, what are these guys doing on the ground? Is it safe to land? Like, how does that work? And for the viewers that have never experienced this or don't know anyone that's experienced this, when you come into a combat zone, they come in real high and then they drop like a rock to the landing. And so you're sitting in the C-130 and they announce that, everyone, make sure you're secured, blah, blah, blah. You have all your gear on. And they drop from, I don't know what it is, aviation wise, of like 10,000 feet to 1,000 feet in like 0.4 seconds. And it's just nuts how fast that plane drops out of the sky. Yeah. But it's to avoid getting shot at and all this type of stuff, and still land safely. And then as soon as we got off that plane, I was happy to be on the ground, but now we're in the desert in a war.
Yeah. So when you were over there, is there any pivotal moment that changed Chris, or was it kind of like always on the edge, or what was it like being there?
Yeah, I mean, our unit and like my platoon, or my squad in particular, we kind of rotated between the platoons of route reconnaissance, security patrols, and convoy security. So you were doing one of those three things pretty much like every other day, maybe every third day, depending on the missions that was required. And so it's like when you're doing route reconnaissance, for example, you're going out to certain areas that either haven't been driven in a long time or that we're looking into to potentially take convoys through, or, well, shoot, if this road gets blown out, we need to make sure this road is already clear. And so that's what you're doing on all those recon trips, right? And at the time, for me, being such a junior Marine, I was again super fresh, right out of training, didn't have any time to pick up rank or do anything. So I was the newest guy. So I got the shit end of every stick that could possibly come my way. And wherever they needed me, they slapped me. It was like, all right, we need you in truck 4 in the gunner seat. Oh, we need you in truck 3 as a driver. And so you were always moved around, in those positions. And of course, I enjoyed being up in the gunner seat because in one sense, I felt like I was the safest because I could return fire if something were to happen, right? Whereas if you're in the driver's seat, you're just, I mean, I'm not shooting out a window. It ain't happening, right? You're just driving.
Yeah.
And you hope to God that an IED doesn't blow you up. Because that was the biggest threat at the time was IEDs. But we were very, very fortunate. The entire deployment, our whole unit, we only lost one Marine to an incident. And it wasn't even from an IED explosion. It was from an IED explosion that blew a big crater in the road. And then they basically had an accident. They were driving for the convoy, and that truck hit that massive hole, and it rolled over and it killed that Marine. So it's subsequent combat, right? It was like combat's what caused the hole, but then the driving accident technically is what killed him. So, and then again, out of that entire time we were there, no one ever got hit with an IED. No one ever got shot at for more than, like, we never like shot and returned fire, like, had rounds fired at us, but couldn't identify where it came from. And so it never escalated except for one night. We were coming back from a security patrol and we had an IED explosion. And I remember that night like it was yesterday. And again, no one got hurt. A couple of people got TBIs, terminal brain injuries. But fortunately, our whole squad walked away clean, and we still say Happy Alive Day to each other on Facebook every year on that date to just remind ourselves that could have been the end of the night for all of us.
Yeah.
So.
And that's definitely something a lot of people don't think about. Very fortunate to be able to walk away from a deployment during that time period. How many deployments did you end up doing, by the way?
4. I did 4 in 4 years.
Okay, 4 in 4 years. So you were just hot on it, right? So, yeah. And I know during that time, you ended up experiencing a lot of stuff. You ended up coming back from Iraq, got promoted, became the person that I knew you as, which was Christopher Reed, then Sergeant Reed. And then the big thing, I remember at the time you did get married, right? And how was your experience being a married Marine and being deployed at that time frame? Like, did that affect it, or how did all that occur?
Well, very unfortunately, it happens to a lot of Marines, especially younger, right? Like, you want to get married because you want to not live in the barracks. And so I was married and divorced twice in just a couple of years, really. And so, yeah, the deployments don't help. I mean, that's for sure. Without trying to put to shame anyone else or anything like that, without going down that rabbit hole, just say they didn't work out. Wasn't my fault, but they didn't work out. And it is what it is, But deployments are definitely a factor there, but they're not the end result, right? It's a factor amongst everything else. So yeah, it's hard. Now, if you've been in a relationship for years and you have an extremely a great bond, like my wife and I now, like if I were to deploy overseas right now, it would not be a problem. Our relationship would be perfectly fine. There would not be any issues, because that's kind of how we work right now. Anyways, I deploy, I go to work, she stays home, and so we're apart as it is. And so I know that if we were together back then and we'd already had a relationship for a few, like, it wouldn't affect anything. But it was just the relationships that I had at the time were quick. They're very, very new. They were never my partner. They were never my person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I bring that up only because it's a lot of young people out there. I get calls all the time. Hey, Paris, now it's Paris instead of Staff Sergeant H. And they say, what is your advice? Do you think I should do it? Do you think I should? And so my question for you is, what advice would you offer someone in the military, no matter what the branch of service, that is considering marriage early? And is there any advice that you would give them?
My advice I'd give anyone in regards to marriage is don't do it so fast. Definitely, like, there's no reason to do it fast. If you're getting married because you accidentally had a kid, and now this kid's coming, you want to get married because you're having a kid. No, don't get married. There's no that's not reason enough to get married, in my opinion. Not to say that you shouldn't eventually get married, but a marriage can cause a lot more problems that a relationship might not be ready for yet. And you got to work through those things naturally as a regular relationship before becoming married. You know what I mean? It's like just now, like my wife and I, we've been together for almost 8 years, and we just got married 2 months ago. And we've known each other for 24 years. We knew each other freshman year of high school. So that's, and again, like for years, people were like, oh, why aren't you getting married? Put a ring on it, blah, blah. My mom was like, she's the one, Christopher, just marry her. I'm like, with time, woman, like,
slow down.
Just let it
And that's a question that I have later in the episode too. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I do have a
Okay.
question about that later. And
Yeah.
um, I think that's a powerful thing that you said because everyone is so young when they start. I remember seeing a lot of marriages when I was in the Marine Corps, and people are starting off at like 2021, and you look back on it, and it's like, man, I know either side did something wrong, but you look back and you're like, yo, the kids, you think that you're an adult. You remember being 18, getting an apartment, being 20, being in Iraq. The Marine Corps helps you to adult real quick. I will
It
say that
does.
they force you to experience life. There's a saying that someone told me throughout numerous times in my career where they were saying, hey, your life as a 26-year-old in the Marine Corps is equivalent to them they're like a 40-year-old in life because you've been done all these things that a 40-year-old ago. You've been in the worst case scenario, you've been married, or you've been in a relationship that didn't work out, long distance, you have to live on your own. So I definitely look back, and like you said, no shade on anybody in past relationship. It's just stuff doesn't work out, people are growing, people are young adults, so it moves forward. So during that time, you also end up having your first one, right? Your first
Yeah.
kid. What was that perspective like coming up for Chris? Having a kid, being a person at the point 4 times, did your perspective change? What was that effect on you?
Well, if you don't mind, let me rewind just for 20 seconds and
Okay,
just
go
to
ahead, go ahead, go
just to
ahead.
tack on to what you were saying about when you're in the military and you're 20 or 25, because of the military, because of your experiences, it's like you're a 35 or 40-year-old person, right? And that is like a mentality that happens naturally. But that is why relationships don't work out sometimes, and not just relationships, just you're not actually 35 or 40. Like now, looking back now as a 38-year-old, my life back then, like I was a different human being than who I am today.
Correct.
It's who made me who I am today, so I don't regret a single minute of it. But I knew, I know now that those relationships were never going to work out, no matter what. Like it just was set to fail from the beginning
Correct.
because of your overall mindset, and you're just not there yet. You're not 30 years old and actually ready to settle down, but you think you are because so many people around you are doing it, and they get extra pay because they're married,
Yeah.
and it's like just don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do it. Don't do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you hit the question, you had a kid in that process. Did that change the perspective of Chris, or how did Chris develop at that moment? Did it change your trajectory at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at that time, I'm like again, like thinking back of life. Okay, that's back at that time. It for sure. I mean, it's now that you have a child and it's your blood and your DNA, and that's something that you created. It's like no other feeling in the world, right? I mean, and people try and say that they love someone for as much as they would love their kid, and then their kid's born, and they're like, I will use you as a human shield to protect this little baby.
Yeah.
Like it just changes, and it changes you as a person, maturity wise, responsibility wise, what you're trying to think about doing. Am I going to the club and drinking on the weekends, or you taking the kid to the park and you're doing this and you're spending money on clothes and that type of stuff. So yeah, 100% changes you for the better.
Yeah.
As long as you have the right mindset, I guess.
Correct. I know a lot of young parents. Some parents are not that still don't get that mindset. I meet a lot of people, and it's hats off to them. I have a kid. It is what it is. I'm still going to the club, still going to party. But then some
Yeah.
are like myself, yourself, where it's like, hey, now I have this person that is dependent on me in life. They need me. They need me to function. They didn't ask to be here. I put
Yeah.
them there for 18 years. It's my obligation to them. So, but during that time, not only did you have a kid, but you ended up having some downtime because in 2011, Christopher Reed got to explore some of the passion, like you said back in the day. You wanted to buy a car, you wanted to do a lot of different stuff, you wanted to get a better car. You had a lot of time where you were into motorcycles and driving cars. What was 2011 like for Christopher when you were exploring these motorcycles in motorcycle clubs and everything? What was it like?
Yeah. So and that was basically after that last deployment that you and I were together on when we went to Haiti, and we came back from that. And long story short, I ended up lap moving, which is just changing jobs in the military, for those that don't know. And I became an air traffic controller. I knew that I was like, you know what, I've done 4 deployments in less than 4 years. I want to do something different. And at that point, I also knew I don't want to be a cop anymore. It wasn't the same thing I wanted when I was younger. So I was looking for a career that I could get into. And so long story short, I get into air traffic control, which comes with a nice big old re-enlistment bonus.
Hey,
You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what started it was a fuel to the fire for going down the road of motorcycles and then drag racing. And stuff like that. Never on the streets. I was never that kind of. I would go to the
you sure about
go to the
that?
track. Oh, I'm sure. Not saying I didn't get a speeding ticket.
Hey,
Just
come
saying,
on.
if someone wanted to race, we were going to the track. You know.
Hey, come on. Yeah.
But and then I got into like a gearhead mindset. Once I took apart one motorcycle engine and put it back together, I was like, well, what else can I do? You know. And then I ended up building a motorcycle. So one of the motorcycles that you've seen over time from me online and stuff, I built it from scratch. I literally bought an old bike, ripped it all the way down to the frame, stripped it, cut the frame, re-welded it, and I built a motorcycle from the ground up. And so that just kind of started my gearhead mind of, when I was in high school, I could change my alternator, I could change battery, I could change my tire and all that type of stuff, but I never got into like engine rebuilding and modification until that point in time. And it amplified quite a bit for a few years there.
And damn, Chris, because what you're describing you did in high school is what I'm doing now. Like the Challenger 2023 came out, and they were like, "It's done, never." I'm like, I want a muscle car, and I go to look at a Beamer, and I'm like, me and my daughter, she's 10 years old, so she's a great influence on me. She's like, "Hey, Dad, that's a nice car. It's a Dodge Challenger." I'm like, "Let's get in it." We grab it. We go. They're like, "Yo, if you think this V6 or something, you should try the V8. You'll never look back." I jump in the V8 and I'm like, "I'm buying this." And I bought it bro, I think I bought it the next day because I was like, I at least attempt
to sleep on it.
Like I gotta not sleep on it. I have to ask the wife. I love the wife to death, and the wife controls the house. So I'm gonna step back, right?
If mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Exactly, right? But I ended up getting this Challenger, and I told myself, even though it ended up being like a 2020 cinnamon stick orange Challenger, but I started telling myself, even though it has nothing wrong with it, I'm going to do everything. So spray painting the calipers, changing the rotors, changing brake pads, changing the interior, trying to put the Starlight roof in it. I did it all myself, and it looks amazing. Nice. It's just knowing that you took apart a motorcycle, it's like, was that always a passion, or was it just baby steps that came along with it?
It was baby steps. My grandfather, my biological grandfather on my dad's side, he was a drag racer back in the 60s and 70s, and like sponsored from Chevrolet and stuff like that, like professional drag racing. And so I've always said it's in my DNA, it's in my blood to race and to modify and to do that type of stuff. But I never did it, mainly because of finances, right? Like that type of stuff is expensive. And so I just never got into it until that time. And then, like I said, I started with a motorcycle, did that, and then I bought it was a 1973, I think, El Camino that had a small block Chevy, right? So small block Chevy, 350. Everyone knows about them. They're a bulletproof motor. Well, that car that I bought was like $2,500, and that motor was done. So I, again, by myself, using YouTube, rebuilt that engine. I pulled that motor out of there. I rebuilt the whole thing. Again, like that's all like on Facebook. I kind of showed the progress and all that stuff, and put it all back together and put it back in the car, and rebuilt that car. It was a great experience for then the later stuff when I got into the bigger motors and the LS2 motor that was in my Trailblazer that I had for a while, because that was a pretty quick truck. But yeah, it was just like little things happened at a time, right? So it's like, okay, well now I've rebuilt an engine. What's next? Okay, well let's add some nitrous. What? Yeah. What is nitrous? What does that do? How does that work? And just going down that line of making things faster.
So from a person that played Need for Speed growing up, nitrous, how fast did it push you to go? Fastest you've ever gone?
I mean, speed limit wise, like just top speed.
Well, just top speed, whether track, on the street, anywhere. Yeah,
so like that Trailblazer I had, I at one point got it a little over 160 miles, probably like 162, 163. Not very accurate at that point. And that was way too fast. It was just way too fast. It is, I mean, I will never have a desire to do it again. Drag racing, you're quarter mile at best in those types of cars, like not these crazy cars that are going 300 miles an hour, right? But you're only going to reach 100, 120. You know what I mean? Like, and on a secured strip, like that's really not that fast. Going down the road, that's really fast and really stupid to do. So yeah, I went over 160 before, and it was like, this is enough. There was still more in it, but it was like, this is way too fast. Like everything, steering, how it feels, you can just feel the car at that speed. Like, oh, let's go ahead and take this back down,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Do not recommend.
I do not recommend it either. I hit 130 at one point, and it starts to shake. The visor's shaking. I'm like, man. And the good thing is my car controls well, so I'm like, I got it. But it's like, why? What's the point? I'm good. We can just hit an 80. So, but yeah. So we fast forward. At this point, you rose in the ranks quite a bit. You ended up getting out the military as Sergeant Reed, correct?
Yep.
So before you ended up getting out, you rose to those ranks. What was leadership like? Coming up in the Marine Corps, I do remember personally, like, I always was like, man, some of my leaders are shitty, some of them are great. What was it like for you to finally be in a position where you were able to lead compared to where you were as a lower enlisted?
Yeah, so air traffic control is a beast in and of itself in regards to leadership, because you have qualifications. So as a junior Marine, you can have someone that's like a corporal or even a lance corporal that could be a certified tower operator, and you just got to a duty station and you're learning, and you're a sergeant or a staff sergeant or a gunnery sergeant, and he's in charge of you. This E3 is in charge of an E6 or E7, and that's a very natural thing that happened. Now, it's only in the tower while you're working, doing your job. Once you're back off, right, then military rank goes back to normal. So right. It was a little bit of it's a lot more laid back because of that, in that side. Now, what I did, I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but so when I was doing air traffic control, I loved it. It was a great job. I really enjoyed it, but I also love martial arts and wanted to advance in the Marine Corps martial arts program. So I went all the way, got a black belt, and then I decided to become an instructor. And once I became a martial arts instructor, I started teaching martial arts every single day for 2 years straight, because that's how long you're an instructor for. Yeah. I did not ever take a break. I just went right through the belt system. As soon as I had like a black belt class finish, I went right back to tan to gray. All right, where is everyone trying to become a gray belt? And then I would take those guys through to gray, green, brown, black, and start again. And I did that for 2 years straight, all the time, every day. And so that leadership side of me, I love and I miss, and that's kind of what caused me to start my YouTube channel. Was I missed teaching. I loved teaching. So martial arts, like teaching others, I loved it, and I miss it so much. So there's like the leadership of that side, right? And then of course there's the air traffic control stuff, where when I went out to 29 Palms, I had great Marines above me. I mean, I had a great gunnery sergeant and a great captain who knew who I was and knew my character. And let me do my thing. I was the tower chief for a while, which when you're a tower chief, that's usually a position that would go to like a gunnery sergeant, like an E7. Well, I was a lonely little E5, right? So even though I was a lower rank, I had that title because I had been at that duty station the longest, and I knew all the rules of the tower and all the stuff, blah, blah, blah. So whenever I had a new person would come in, like a staff sergeant or gunny, when we were in the tower and in work, like, they had to listen to me. Now, once we got out of there, and then the same thing, martial arts, right? It was the same thing. Like when they came to martial arts training, if they were an E7 or E8, like it didn't matter. Oh, come on, I don't need to do the Jacob's ladder. I'm like, Gunny, get out there, start running, go. Yeah.
You don't need to, but you're gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a dynamic, and it just depends on the other people around you too, right? Like how are because some people get in those positions and they're a little bit power hungry, right? But I think I was pretty well respected because of the time in that I had, and even though I was a lower rank, I could have easily been a higher rank. But again, you probably are aware of this type of thing as a recruiter, and you know the rules there. But long story short, I denied orders one time at an earlier part of life. And so I was stuck at E5. I was never going to change. I didn't get any other punitive action or anything negative, but I was never going to get promoted. So I was an E5 for like 5 years.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by like a lot of people respected me because they knew like, okay, even though Sergeant Reed is just a sergeant, he's actually been in for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, and it was never an issue.
And that's a powerful thing that you said, is just because a lot of people don't understand during that time frame, denying orders it would stakehold you into a spot where you are not able to move. And so you end up going out to 29 Palms, and that was the final place. That was the final place that you ended up going. So
Yep.
what prompted Chris to finally say, you know what? I'm done. I'm hanging up, the Marine Corps camis, and I'm looking at something else. What was that decision and transition like?
Well, so air traffic control is a very well-known thing. It's hard to retain air traffic controllers because why would I stay in the Marine Corps when I can get out and do the same thing and get paid six figures? So, and that's why people do it. And that's why I lap moved to do that job, was because I knew that I could get out and go work for the FAA and go make a lot more money. So that was a pretty large factor there, is like, I can get out and go make more money as a civilian. I make the joke with my dad sometimes, because again, he did 21 years in the Coast Guard. I said 10 years in the Marine Corps was the same as 21 in the Coast Guard, okay? It's like even though I only did 10 years, it's as if it was 20, because 4 deployments back to back to back to back, it takes a toll on you. So I was just done. I don't regret it. I miss the Marine Corps as a whole, and the camaraderie and all that type of stuff, but I don't regret getting out or anything like that. I think it was all part of my life to where I'm at now.
Correct. And I agree with you on that. It's times you miss it, and times you're like, man, I can't imagine waking up at 5 o'clock, talking about 5:30, 6, talking about PT. I'm not doing it. I'll go PT when I want to. How about that?
Yeah.
So when you got out, you said you working for the FFA, air traffic control. Did you actually go and do that? Did you have a clear plan for life after? Was everything like, hey, structured to where you did it, and did it go the way that you planned?
Well, so we can talk about a couple things in regards to that. So yes, in the aspect of I got hired on by the FAA. That happened. I put in for a job. I got hired, and then they send you options of where they can put you. So at the time, I did 10 years in the Marine Corps. I want to go back home, Tampa, Florida. Put me at Tampa International Airport, and I'll be happy. Well, the closest the FAA could put me was either Port St. Lucie, which is the other coast, about 2.5 hours away, or Pensacola, Florida, which is like 8 hours away. And so I had to do a lot of reflecting, because I was really debating on that. And I talked to one of my uncles, who's a big life influence, and he wanted me to do it. He's like, it's like a government job, X amount of money, blah, blah. He's like, you need to go do that. But to me, at the end of the day, the reason I didn't was because I missed my family. I missed my nephews. When I first went to boot camp, I had one nephew who was less than a year old. And now at this point, 10 years later, I have 4 of them who are 10, 8, 6, and then the baby, he had just been born. So I was like, I'm going home. It's unfortunate, but I'm not going to keep doing it. So I chose not to go for the FAA because, again, I didn't want to live 3 hours away. And that's when I transitioned to HVAC. Because again, I like working with my hands. I like fixing things, and I like problem solving. And so I went to an HVAC school out in Texas and got certified and all this stuff, and graduated top of my class there, and was like, all right, bam, let's go and just do this. And I, again, don't regret it for a second. It's more labor intensive than air traffic control, but man, in Florida, I'll tell you, you can make as little or as much money as you want to. Living in Florida doing AC work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like people's ACs are breaking, and people need AC in Florida. So,
Yes.
And anyone that does that job and says they don't make enough money, it's your own fault. Like, go out on a Saturday and a Sunday and go knocking on doors. I mean, I guarantee you can start your little side business and eventually start your own business in like 5 years. That's really all it takes, and it's literally just a lack of motivation, lack of wanting to work and push yourself. So that's that career transition.
Yep. And when you said that, a great point that you made, you said you graduated at the top of your class at HVAC school. How intense was that school compared to being in the Marine Corps? Because a big saying is, you do the Marine Corps, you can do anything. Once you do that, you're gonna excel. I'm a big believer in that. The reason why I and others excel once we get out the Marine Corps is because of the standard that we're always held to. So was that school challenging, or was it just kind of like I knew what I need to do and it just naturally came to you?
Well, so no, it's definitely challenging, especially depending on what basic knowledge you already have, right? And so my class, and every class is the same way, is mixed with people who have never held a screwdriver to people that, like their dad was a journeyman electrician, and they already know a lot of stuff about voltage and this, that, and the third. So I was, in the middle there of like, well, my dad was an electrician in the Coast Guard, and so like I always knew basic electrical stuff because of him. And then again, I was a gearhead, and I knew, took apart things, and if I could take it apart, I could put it back together. So it was a lot of learning. It's a lot of, that's the thing with HVAC is you don't get paid for what you do, you get paid for what you know. So, some people are like, oh my God, you were here for 30 minutes and it's $300 that you're charging me? Well, it's not because it took me 30 minutes. It's because I knew what to do with those 30 minutes. Like you could have someone that doesn't know what they're doing. They're there for 3 or 4 hours and you still don't have air conditioning. Are you paying them the same? Like, are you paying them per hour? No, you're paying me per job based on my knowledge. And so I knew that at school. A good instructor kind of taught us that if you get paid for what you know, not for what you do. And that's when I was like, I need to hit these books, because we're in basically Dallas, Texas, and you're out of school with a bunch of veterans. And what does everyone want to do? Go out and drink and party. I'm like, okay, that's all great, but we got a test tomorrow, Yeah. And so you're going to pay for it, And to me, it was, I'm here to build my career. I'm not here to, go have fun. Now, we still went and had fun when the time was appropriate. Yeah. But otherwise, I was hitting the books and I was studying and I was doing flashcards. I was holding study groups with other people because, again, I was like at the top of my class and everyone's like, man, how do you know this stuff? I'm like, because I'm studying. It's not that, it's just, you just got to do it. And so I'd hold study groups at the hotel and, teach people and we, went through it. But
and I definitely can see that coming from you just because I don't know if you remember, but you are the person that kind of helped me to study for my corporal promotion, right? I get told, I remember it like it was yesterday, back in 2009. Hey, Paris, you're going on this promotion board. I tell this guy by the name of Sergio Soto, I don't feel like it. He then proceeds to say, shut up, you fuck. And you're going on this board. And I remember you and a gentleman by the name of Clout, they were like, hey, I'm going to help you study, And I just remember the techniques that you had for studying. You kind of introduced me to flashcards, and I really appreciate that. So I could definitely see you doing those type of things. So you become HVAC certified. Did you go back to Florida like you originally planned? And did you get a job immediately? Did you start freelancing? How did that work out?
Yeah, so I went immediately straight back to Florida. Went to live with my parents and, told them like, hey, I'm just here temporarily. I'm getting, I already got a job, blah, blah. Like this is going to happen. I'm not going to be here long. And, and they were fine with it, of course, at this point, whatever I was 28 years old or 29. And so they were perfectly fine with that transition of helping me out but no, I went straight to the workforce. I got a job at a great small little company that was basically like the owner, 2 other guys, and then like an install crew of 2 or 3 guys, and then like his daughters ran the office. It was a real small little company, but it was perfect because I got a great knowledge from him, and from school, like I was ready to hit the ground running. So in HVAC and that type of thing, like if I was a company owner and I had this new guy that just came out of school. Like if I was him at the time looking at me, I'd be like, all right, so you're going to come with me in the truck for a while and I'm going to see what you can do before I just give you your own truck, right? I had my own truck in less than a week. So it was like, I had that motivation of this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy my own house. I'm going to build my life, blah, blah, blah. And I did it. I set a plan in place and I went and I did it.
And when you rolled into that, you do the successful transition to HVAC. Are there any times where you felt like, yo, this was the wrong decision, or you always felt like, hey, this is easy money, hey, we're good with it?
No, yeah, it was. I'm not gonna say it's easy money because it's a sweaty, hard job, especially when you got like rooftop units on 3-story buildings and you got to lug your tools up there. Then you get up there, figure out what's wrong. Now you go back down to your truck to get a part, and then back up this. So it's rough, especially in July and August. It is a very difficult, very labor intensive, hot environment. And again, I'm not showing up to houses that are air conditioned. I'm showing up to houses that have no air conditioning. So, I'm up in an attic at, I don't know, 120, 130 degrees all day long, if not much worse than that. And so you're just pounding water when you're in your truck in between calls, and just grinding, and not giving up and asking for more hours and asking for more stuff. And then you start the side work, right? Doing little jobs on the side for, my mom's friend, she's having a problem. So like I'd start with that type of thing, right? And then go make a little extra cash on the side. And then I was like, oh, I can do this by myself, And so then it turns into, all right, I'm going to do a little bit more on the side, and on the weekends, and make a little extra money on the weekend. And you could do that, or you could just not and complain about not making enough money.
True. Very much. And as you start doing the HVAC, you end up doing it very successful, and you end up transitioning to what we know as a catastrophic insurance adjuster. What motivated this shift, and tell me a little bit about that.
So I say life has a plan for you, right? What's meant to be will be. And this career and like how everything happened, it was just everything. So many other things had to happen in order for this to happen, right? So long story short, while I was doing my side work for AC work, I also had a side business growing saltwater coral, right? Reef tanks are a big, huge thing. You go into like a nice restaurant, and there's beautiful saltwater fish, and they got coral, right? Well, in Florida especially, it's a hobby that so many people enjoy. And so I started a little business growing saltwater coral, okay? And I met several people through that. And one of the guys I met, his dad was a catastrophe insurance adjuster. And so his dad's this guy, and I didn't know him. He just came to my house like once every 2-3 weeks and would buy another piece of coral. And we would talk, and I would talk about work, AC work and this, that, and just talking about what is needed for that job, right? Because to do AC work, you have to have a good amount of empathy, right? Because when you show up, whether the AC just went out or the AC's been out for 2 weeks, whether it's 60 degrees outside or it's 100 degrees outside, to that person, that homeowner that their AC just broke, it could be the end of the world. All they got to do is open up a window and they're probably okay, right? But to them, it could be the end of the world. And you can't treat them any differently than you treated the person beforehand who hadn't had air conditioning for, say, a month because they don't have enough money, and they finally save up enough money to call an AC guy, and they've been without AC for a month. And so I have to give that same amount of empathy to both people, right? And so that conversation had been going on, and so that's what led him to say, hey, you should talk to my dad about what he does. And I was like, what does he do? And he's like, well, he's a catastrophe insurance adjuster. I was like, what the hell is that? What is that? It doesn't, those words don't mean anything to me. Okay, all I know is the word insurance. I know catastrophe, right? Big thing happens, right? Hurricane, flooding, right? But insurance adjust, what is he adjusting? I don't understand it, right? So he's like, just talk to him. So my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, and we were finally he'd mentioned it a few times, and we're like, oh, whatever, let's go talk to this guy. So we go over to his house, and he starts talking to us about the job, and he's just telling us what it is and what it's about. And essentially he's saying, hey, hurricane comes and hits, you're going to go to work, and I got your back. We're going to help you through everything. We're going to walk you through everything. We're going to get the job done, and you're going to go work for 4 weeks, maybe a couple months, depending on the type of storm. And dude, you can bank 6 figures in 2 months. And we're like, what'd you say?
Yeah.
Rewind. And so we kind of thought he was a little bit full of it, but decided to do our own research. And again, that conversation was 2 hours long, okay? And so we went back home that night, and we did our own research. We went online, catastrophe insurance adjusting, on Indeed, how average, what are people making? And I was like, oh shit, he's not lying. You can make buku bucks in this career, but how? What? I don't understand. Where's this money coming from? Yeah. And so we just went down a little rabbit hole of how it works and where you're getting paid from and stuff because people often think I get paid from let's say you had an insurance claim. People think that you're paying me part of your claim. No. It's not that at all. It has nothing to do with that. Your insurance carrier is going to pay me to go do my job on their behalf. So essentially what it boils down to is who do you have for your homeowner's insurance?
So it is I think it's USAA.
Okay, so USAA. So USAA is a large insurance company. They have tons of policies across the entire nation. Do you think that they have enough insurance adjusters on staff full time to deal with a catastrophe?
They do not.
They don't. Now they got enough for daily claims, like if your dishwasher line breaks right now, right, and you call to make an insurance claim, call the USA, you're going to get an adjuster to come out to your house and do his job. But if your area gets smacked with a tornado and it destroys, say, 10,000 USAA customers' homes, well, they only got like 6 guys in the area that are insurance adjusters. How are 6 guys going to get to 10,000 customers?
They ain't.
They ain't. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So that's where I come in. So that's where a catastrophe insurance adjuster, right? So I'm independent. I can go work for any insurance carrier at any time. I have the license to go to whoever needs me the most. So they basically bring you on kind of temporarily, right? Like some jobs I've worked are W-2 where it's taxed and all that stuff, and others it's 1099 because like you're just a temporary employee there to do a job. Again, it could be 2 weeks, could be 2 months. It depends on what's going on. But so that's the basics of it. It's like people think you don't work for the insurance company. It's like, no, I do, but I don't work for them full time. I'm just here temporarily. You know what I mean? So it confuses some people sometimes.
And it make perfect sense. As soon as you said it all, I got this thing, like I said on my first podcast ever, that Dr. Strange syndrome where you could tell me that, and it kind of all started clicking. I'm like, man, I guarantee it's insurance companies are like, we're overpopulated. We don't have enough people, which we're going to go hire contractors to do it for a short period of time and go out. And that's an amazing thing. So for anybody out there that's looking for a new career, not sure what they want to get into, if this was something that intrigued them, what is that certification process looking at? Is it long? Is it hard? Do you have to have a doctorate degree to get it, or what is it?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of the job is that you don't need a degree. Having a degree, like people go to school for it, but those are like those staff adjusters that work for Progressive and State Farm USA, right? But no, you don't need a degree. You just need a high school diploma. I can't remember it specifically. You do pass a background check, okay? But it's mainly all crimes relating to like finance and fraud, right? So if you have something in your background, misdemeanor, felony wise, that has to do with that stuff, you're probably not going to be able to get past the background check. But if you have a misdemeanor from 10 years ago for abuse, like let's say like you have some kind of negative that's not finance, it's not anything, but you'll probably still pass it. So it can be open to a lot of people. It can be. However, it's a very difficult job to do. It is not easy. The hours you work, like when I go to work, I don't work 9 to 5. I work from the second I wake up until the moment I go to bed, 16 hours a day, all day long, 7 days a week, until I'm done. Period. Now, some people will set their own schedules, and it depends. Like different deployments, different catastrophes can call for different things. But that's how I work now. Is from the moment I'm awake to the moment I'm in bed, I'm working. But the certification it's not that difficult. It is, I want to say, like 40 hours, a course that's online, and it's state dependent. Now, if your state doesn't require you to have an insurance adjuster license to become an insurance adjuster, like the state of Virginia, for example. I live in Virginia now. Virginia doesn't require you to have a license to be an insurance adjuster. But that's just within the state. Once I go to a different state, now I have to get their license. So the best thing to do in regards to the catastrophe side of things is you have to get to a state that you can designate. It's called designated home state. So let's say you pick Florida as your designated home state. So you go through Florida's process for getting your all lines adjuster's license. So like I said, it's like a 40-hour online course. You do that, and then you got to take a test, and it's a pretty intense test. I can't remember if it's 80 or 100 questions. So it's not like you can just blow through 40 hours, click, click, click. No, you got to learn. You have to learn what is going on. But you take the test, then so you pass the test. You got your 40 hours. You do the background check, fingerprints, all that type of stuff. Send it all off to the state, and then it gets approved, and then you get your license. But it's not that difficult of a process. I've helped multiple people do it already, get into the career, and they're now extremely successful in it. It's a process.
So when we look at it from that standpoint, what is one of the biggest lessons that you have learned from the insurance industry or just your job industry? What is one of the biggest lessons that you would want to give to someone?
So biggest lesson I've learned is why I live in the mountains now. I mean, I grew up in Florida, right? My whole life was Florida, Michigan. So I've had hurricanes my whole life. I never thought twice about them really. Like Cat 4 is coming. Oh shoot, that means we can't go outside. But it was like, it was never a concern. But
Yeah.
now that the job that I do, where I don't just see the disaster and see an area that gets impacted, I see the worst of the worst. And so once you've seen the worst of the worst and what these storms can do, hurricanes, wildfires, floods, whatever, once you've seen all that, you go, I'm going to move to higher ground. I'm going to move inland. I'm going to move to the mountains where the tornadoes can't form. And that's why I live where I live now. I mean, my only real threat out here as a natural disaster is potentially hail could happen, but that's just going to dent my roof. Like, that's not really the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And then the only like thing that could happen is a fire, right? Like electrical fire in the house, but that's everywhere. So it's like, I've eliminated hurricanes, I've eliminated flooding, I've eliminated tornadoes, I've eliminated all these things that could happen to me.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest lesson learned of like, I'm not staying in this area.
I can definitely see that. My wife, she actually tells me all the time. She's like, I had plethora of job offers in Jacksonville, Pensacola. It was a place in South Carolina on the coast as a instructor, making great money. And I don't want to go to anywhere near a beach. I'm like, I love the beach. You know, y'all actually taught me how to swim when we were in
Jordan.
In Jordan, bro. I tell
Yeah.
people all the time when I jumped off, y'all were doing this video. Everybody was diving off, dive.
Oh yeah, that's some of the best times of our lives
in.
right there.
It was, bro. I jump off feet first, and then I get yelled at. They're like, "Hey, Paris, what the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "Bro, I don't know how to swim. I don't know how to dive." And then y'all teach me how to swim. So, hey, kudos to you for that. But so during all this time going forward, you're meeting your potential and your future wife. What was that experience like rekindling? Now that we know that you knew her back in high school, you know, y'all been knowing each other for 20 plus years. What was the experience like? Were you actively looking for love, or how did that occur?
So we knew each other. We actually have a video from the night that we met, and we actually just rewatched it with her dad last night. It was homecoming of 2002. She was dating my best friend, and I was dating a girl who then became her best friend, and just now at our wedding was her maid of honor. My girlfriend at the time was her maid of honor just now.
Okay.
And so that's how we met. Like, she was dating my best friend, I was dating her best friend, and so then the four of us just became like a clique, right? So freshman year, we hung out all the time, and we just became friends in high school. She's Miss Smarty Farty Pants, and she was only in high school for freshman year. She then went dual enrollment and went to college.
Oh.
So she went to college her sophomore year of high school and would just take like whatever placement test she needed to take along the way to maintain getting her high school diploma, but also putting in these years at college. So, because her goal in life at the time was to become a vet. And so that's what she needed to do in order to do that. And so even though she was gone from high school, she would come at lunchtime. We would see her a couple times a week, you know. And so we maintained being friends throughout all 4 years of high school, even though she didn't technically still go to high school. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But we still saw each other and hung out and this, that, and the third. And at the time, like high school, again, different human being. I was a different human being in high school. I was a different human being from 18 to 25, you know, and then I finally, you know, smartened up. So we were like Facebook friends, obviously, right? And so over the years in the Marine Corps, at one point, I had gone home on leave and was in my dress blues at the club. And she was a bartender at the club at the time.
Okay.
And I remember seeing her that night, and I was like, God, I'm going to marry that girl one day. I mean, she's just gorgeous. She's just gorgeous, right? This is years after high school type of thing.
Yeah.
And I just remember that, and I just remember how beautiful she was. But again, we were just friends. We said hi and talked for a minute, but she was working, right? And she's just slinging beers. And she has work ethic like I do. She's just nonstop. And so that was about the only time I physically saw her other than Facebook for years and years and years and years and years. Well, then doing AC work, I'm in Florida, you know, whatever, life happens the exact right way. I was, you know, looking, but not overly crazy, but I was on some of the apps at the time. Caught each other on a dating app. And I was like, you know, we were kind of joking about it back and forth, you know, messaging each other. And I remember, so basically I was hanging out with my buddy who I joined the Marine Corps with, but then left 2 days later. I was hanging out with him, and I just put in an offer to buy my first house.
Okay.
And so this night we're out at it was basically a high school party. They were young, early 20s, but it was like, beer pong and that type of shenanigans are going on. And I'm standing there like, man, I just put in an offer to buy my first house, and I'm at like a beer pong party. You know what I mean? It wasn't my scene, right? It wasn't where I wanted to be at. And so again, her and I just been kind of chatting a little bit a few times. And so I messaged her and told her, I was like, yeah, I'm at this BS party. Well, and she's like, well, why don't you come over here and have a glass of wine and we'll just catch up.
Hey.
And we have not been apart since. I mean, that was it. I went over there that night and we just hung out till 4 a.m. on the couch just talking and just catching up on life over the years of everything that I've gone through and she's gone through and relationships and this, that, and the third. Because I remember, again, because of Facebook, I remember the boyfriend that she had before me and like who I had most recently seen her with online was this big old buff dude, right? I mean, big buff dude. And so in my mind, again, even though we found each other on a dating app, it was just because we were just old high school friends and it was like, oh, it's nice to talk. I didn't think I was really her type because of what I was seeing her with. Well, again, that night we just started talking and before you know, it was like, yep, this is my life partner. I knew it that night. She fought it a little bit for a few weeks, but she eventually got on.
Hey, Apple agrees. You see?
Yeah, so little bubbles popped up.
And that's a great thing, man, because I think when it boils down to it, people really go out looking for it all the time, and we don't think that, hey, look, sometimes we need to let stuff come natural. We need to let it, ponder. And if it's meant to be, it is meant to be.
That's exactly right.
We look at it a little bit forward. You didn't get engaged until 2024.
Yep.
And you got married in 2025. Do you think that the previous time that you had in your other marriage influenced your decision to wait as long? Or did you finally just say, you know what, I'm going to take stuff natural and I'm going to see what comes to and make sure this is right for not only me, but for her? Because one thing that I've learned in life is that sometimes you have to protect people from themselves. Sometimes, and if somebody had been protecting Christopher back in the day, maybe you wouldn't have done some of the things that you did, but that's life. So do you think that influenced some of your decision to wait as long as you did, or you were just waiting for the natural moment?
I would say a mix of both. I mean, it definitely influenced, like, there's no reason to rush into stuff, right? Like, even though I knew that night, like, this is my partner, this is the person who I'm supposed to be with, and my parents confirmed it as we, I was like, hey, guess who? And then I bring her inside the house. My parents are like, oh my God, Erica, I haven't seen you. Like, because they, again, Facebook, right? My mom follows everyone. And so they knew immediately, like, that's who I was supposed to be with. But at the same time, we're in our 30s and we're both very independent people. Like I said, I just bought my first house. She was a very independent woman. She did not need, I always say, I said, you're a strong, independent woman. You don't need no man. Yeah. And that was how she was. She did not need me whatsoever. I was just blessed that she wanted to be with me and wanted to hang out with me, and again, and be so inseparable, because we basically moved in together immediately, and we were together for, like I said, 7 years before I asked her to marry me. Technically, it was on our 7-year anniversary that I proposed to her. But the reason it took so long was I set my own standard of, when we get married, I want zero debt from both of us, right? And she was already debt-free, but I wanted to be completely debt-free, and that not be something that we're bringing into the marriage together. When people come in with debts, it can cause issues, right? Especially when it comes to finances, because I like to spend my money how I like to spend my money, right? Like, I like to buy things. I like guns, I like fishing, I like to do stuff, and she's more frugal.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that when we do get married, that I can still have my own money, she can have her own money, and we can have our money together, type of thing. Because every marriage works differently in that aspect, right? Some people, it's like, once you get married, all the money goes into one pot, right? But now if I want to buy something, now I got to ask her permission. And that's okay for different, relationships, but we knew that that's not how we wanted to be. Like, I wanted to have my money for myself, she wanted to have her money for herself, and then we have our money together. Yeah. So that's why a bigger aspect of why it took so long, because I bought that first house, and then we started traveling, and then, we sold that house. We moved here to this house. And so it was just, life. And then finally I was like, all right, I think this is it. We're here. We're at our forever home that we want to die in. And, we're happy with everything we have. We're debt free. It's time. And she knew it was coming. Like, she knew the proposal was coming, but she still, like, when it happened.
Were you able to pull off what most Marines do? Like, our Dream Marines always, like, there's nothing these Marines could do to shock us. And then fucking Monday morning, fucking blotter. You shocked me.
Blotter.
Were you able to pull off a shocking proposal?
Yeah, I did. Even though, like, she knew it was coming, she didn't know specifically when it was coming. And so we went down to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, which is out here in the Smoky Mountains. And we were doing a couple different things. And, like, the first night we went to this nice, super fancy restaurant. And I could have easily proposed to her there, right? But I didn't. And I kind of was dragging my feet because she knew it was going to happen. And then we go on a helicopter tour, right? And so we go on this helicopter, and we're up in the air, and we're going around. And my original plan was actually I was going to propose to her in the helicopter because I figured there's no way she would be able to know it's coming. She's going to be, like, looking out the window, and all of a sudden she's going to turn around, and I'm going to be, like, down on one knee. Well, it's real difficult to coordinate that type of thing. Like, I can't call ahead and say, hey, by the way, I'm proposing on a flight. Can I unbuckle my seatbelt and get on the flight? And so I was still just, like, in the moment of, like, rings in my pocket, in my hand, and just figuring out with the exact right time. And so we land, and I'm like, all right, shit, now we're, like, on the ground, like, now what? But part of the package that I paid for was the romance package that had your own little private room after the helicopter that kind of, like, looks over the mountains, and they provide you with, like, some chocolates and champagne and all this, like, local stuff. And so we go into that room, and we sit down, and we're calming down the adrenaline from being up in the air just now.
Yeah.
And so long story short, it's just right at the right moment when she looked away, I just bammed down on one knee, and I had my little speech in my head kind of where I wanted to go, and she lost it, immediately. She's crying. And so she did not know, like, again, she knew it was coming. She just didn't know when. And when it hit her, it hit her.
Hey, and that's a good thing because y'all end up getting married. And how has that been so far? How has marriage been for you two in this adventure that y'all call life?
Well, it's been great. I mean, like, everyone always asks, like, oh, like, do you feel any different? No. I mean, we've been together so long at this point that it's like nothing feels different. I just feel more, like, complete at this point, because before it was like that was still something that had to happen, something that was going to happen eventually, right? So now it's done, and now that's happened, and now, so we just went through all of the driver's license and social security card, getting her name changed, and, like, today we went and did our passports, going through that process with her. That to me has meant more than a lot in terms of, like, getting married, because her becoming part of my family, especially today, like, we're in 2025, like, not many people change their names anymore. It's just not happening. Yeah. And she didn't have to. She had no need to, but she wanted to because she wanted to be part of my family. And so that meant a lot,
I could definitely see how that would mean a ton in today's society. And during that time, you ended up starting a YouTube channel called Why Not RV? And I see you with the shirt on, man. And
it's every day.
You are a huge inspiration for why I finally clicked the button with my podcast, bro, because I saw, one, the progress that you made, how you started from the very beginning and where you are now with it. So what inspired you to create that channel? What was your primary focus when you did it?
Yeah, so when I started RVing and I bought my first RV, that's when I got away from all the fast things, right? Like, I had these cars, and she gives me so much crap about the whole time we've been together, how many cars I've had, and she's had one. She still has one. It's been this whole time. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, but the first, it's like the Dragon Wagon, that was just a race car, and then I had the Grand National, and that was just for, like, show, and then we sold that. So I have excuses for each one of my cars. But basically what happened to me was, like, I was in the world of cars and car shows and stuff like that, and it's like, what's the purpose of life with these cars? Like, what is it doing? Like, is it bringing me joy? A little bit, but what could bring me even more joy? And it was freedom. And how can I get freedom? Well, a truck and a trailer, that's how I can get freedom. I can go anywhere in the country. And so that's why I bought my first RV. Was I was like, I'm going to get out of the cars world, and I'm going to get a truck and an RV, and we're going to go down that roller coaster. And so when I did, I started doing, YouTube research and how to do stuff, how to make things better, how to upgrade something, and how do you hitch up? How does water work? How does this work, right? And some of the videos I was coming across were just, it was a lot of hit or miss stuff. It was a lot of like, oh, okay, well, this is how you do it right here, and then cut scene, and then it was like it's installed, and you're like, what happened? How'd you do that? So, and again, like with my knowledge of HVAC and electrical and stuff like that, I was like, and I missed teaching so much from martial arts. And I was like, I'm going to start my own channel. I'm just going to start my own channel. I'm going to start recording the projects that I'm doing and put them out there. And that's there was no goal of like making money and making it a big thing. My only purpose was to try and help someone else. If one video can help one person, that's all that mattered to me. And I was doing the projects anyways. Like, yeah, it might take some extra time to set up a camera and to record this and take 2 takes of something maybe, but it's not adding, hours onto a job. It just adds a little bit of time. So
attention to detail.
Yeah. So and it kind of helps me because now like I can look. I've looked back at my videos because I'm like researching something now, and I was like, wait a second, I made a video on this like 2 years ago. But it's because when I go to make a video, like I'll dive so deep because I want to give as much accurate information as possible. And some things that I've done, like I've done some very complex wiring things that have happened inside RVs that like no one else had ever made a video on before. And to this day, I'm like, still no one has made another video. So when I had to do this, so I did this on my second RV. And then now with my new RV, I was doing something and it required doing this action. And I literally watched my own video to learn how to do it again. So it's like, it's great, like for myself.
Yeah.
But,
and I definitely agree with you because you can definitely learn a lot from yourself. I told the wife when I dropped my last episode, she's like, you're watching your own episode? I'm like, yeah, it's like you have to learn like how to maneuver, what you did wrong, how to critique yourself. I said, you are your
Absolutely.
best critiquer, you know? Nobody's going to critique Chris and Paris the way that Chris and Paris do themselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I watched some of my old videos, and I'm just like, oh, God. Oh, that hurts.
And then shout out to Chris again, bro. Chris is the first person that put the idea of podcasting, video, YouTube in my head. We had this viral video back in the day, 2009, and he's like, man, what is that on your phone? I remember the day because I was like, oh, man, I just got this iPhone. He's like, man, this is like 2009.
I'll say either 9 or maybe 10, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, was it 2010?
It might, maybe. Definitely 2009, maybe 2010.
Yeah, 2009, 10. And next thing you know, he's like, yo, what kind of case is that? I'm like, it's the OtterBox Indestructible. And he's like, oh, well, man, you want to test it? He's like, yeah, I'll record you. So him and this guy, Sergio, Cloud, Reed, and I forgot who else was there. But either way, on this video on YouTube right now, I think it has like 200, 300,000 views.
We'll drop a link. I'll send it to you.
We'll drop a link for it. But it literally is them kicking this phone probably like 100, 50, 100 yards, and then throwing it back, and it was just amazing. And every time I thought about that, I look at those views, and I'm like, man, can you imagine if you had started a channel then?
Exactly. I've thought about that. I was like, man, if you just took that momentum of like at that time, especially now, like today's world, everything like the short form content is what people are just constantly scrolling through, right? And then it drives people over to the longer form stuff for those that want the longer form stuff. But that short form content, that video was like maybe a minute long, minute and a half. And it was pure entertainment, right? Yes. And that's the thing, like what is your videos doing? Are they entertaining someone? Are they educating someone? Like what value is it bringing to the viewer? And that video was pure entertainment. And at the end of the day, I'm not an entertainer, so I could not continue like a channel of like entertain. I can't think of these things that like just to get people to click on and watch. It's just not in my wheelhouse. I'm more technical and say, all right, today we're going to teach you how to do this. And that's where my brain's at. So, but yeah.
And I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. So when you think about the, why not RV now, can you share our most popular do-it-yourself project or the topic that you covered that you got the most attention from?
My second video.
Okay.
Literally the second video I ever put out, which was really my first video, because my first video was just an introduction of who I was, what the channel was going to be, right? My second video, I want to do it first because I knew it was one of the most popular things that people struggle with all the time, and it's the question that everyone's always asking all the time, which is basically how to install an RV outlet at your house, right? Because so many people buy an RV and then they get it home and they're like, well, now how do I plug this thing in? Right? Because depending on the RV, it could be 30 amp or it could be 50 amp. And so without getting too technical, that video is how to install a 50 amp circuit at your house and everything you need. It's a very detailed video, and it's still my #1 most performing video. Even though I've made a shorter version of it like 2 years later, because I did the same type of project, so I just recorded it again and put it out there in the world, and it's still got, I don't know, 10, 20, 30,000 views, but that first video is at a couple 100,000 views because it's being watched every day, 200 or 300 times a day, no matter what I do. And to me, that's at this point, like with my channel and like where I'm trying to grow it to, is I'm trying to get better quality videos out there that will do that same type of thing. Whereas it makes money while I sleep, right? Like these videos just are always being watched. That's always a topic that someone's going to research. And if I built up my following as, say, like some of the RV YouTubers are families that show their travels, right? Which is great. It provides a great service. People want to see where you're traveling. They want to see the world without leaving their couch, right? Well, you watch that video one time, but you're not going to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
Whereas with my educational style videos, like, okay, let's say you're trying to figure out how to replace that outlet that's behind you in your house. And you go and you look on YouTube, how to replace a house outlet, right? Well, you watch that video, you might watch 4 or 5 videos, and then you say, okay, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy some stuff, I'm going to come back, and what are you going to do?
You're going to watch it again.
You're going to watch it again, and then in the middle of the project, you're going to go,
damn, I missed the part.
Go back to the video. So you get the same person to watch a video 3 or 4 times, and that's another reason I like that I'm doing educational, because that's what's happening with my views, is like, even though my subscriber count, my view count, it's way different, but it's because the same people are rewatching the same video.
Yeah. And I definitely catch myself doing that a lot. I do it a lot with TikTok. I do it a lot with YouTube. YouTube short. YouTube is more of my channel when I want to see something in depth. And then TikTok is like, you can do it quick. So I definitely agree with you on that. During this time, not only did you do Why Not RV, you and the wife ended up going on this adventure around the United States, where I'm going to take a wild guess. I don't know the exact number, but I'm taking a wild guess and say out of, all the states, you probably hit all of them, 50, 48, 49, 47. What was that adventure like when you guys got in your RV, that truck, and then y'all started driving around the United States and hitting all 40 plus states?
Yeah, so we hit all 48 continental United States, right? We didn't go to Alaska. Okay. And of course, you can't go to Hawaii with an RV. So the only trip that we have left that we could take would be going to Alaska. But the road to Alaska is horrible. I mean, it's a very well-known thing. Like, your RV is going to get beat to crap. Rocks get chipped in, and it's just not worth it. So I'd rather fly to Alaska and just go visit that state. And we're going to do that on our own time. But so basically, in 2019, I bought the first RV. And we had done a little small trip local, like an hour north of where we lived in Florida. And then we did a trip down to the Keys. And we came back from the Keys, and it was, now we've lived in it for like a week at a time. And, you're doing laundry in it. Because at the time, it was a big 39-foot fifth wheels, basically a freaking apartment on wheels, right? And so we got comfortable, we got used to it. And I said, all right, while we're young and able, we're going to travel all 48 states in 2 years.
Okay.
And that was like the goal that I set out, because I figured when you look at an RV park, fortunately, a lot of it's shifting. It's a lot younger now, but mostly, especially 5 years ago, it's old people. It is very elderly people, finally retired, finally get to go travel. And it's like, watching them set up an RV is painful because their back's all messed up, their neck's messed up, and they're trying to do that stuff at an elderly age is difficult. So I decided while we're young and able, let's get after it. And so I did. So I planned out this trip. I planned out every single night for 3 months. It was basically a 90-day trip in 2020. And so this is all 2019 while I'm doing this planning. Well, as you can tell from the time of 2019, 2020, something happened in the world. And so COVID happened. And I had this trip planned out, and it's like, what do we do? So many of our friends are yelling at us like, you can't leave, it's messed up, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we live in the most densely populated county in the state of Florida. There is more than double the amount of people per square mile than there are in Miami, where we lived. And I was like, if anything, I'm doing this place a favor by leaving here.
Yeah.
And where we're going to, out in the country, out in the wilderness, out in the boonies, there's less people. How is that a bad thing? And so long story short, so we left April of 2020, and the goal was basically Florida to Michigan and everything west, all the way to California. And so we did. We had this route going, and we did the whole thing, and we get out, go up to Washington State, come across, and the whole time, COVID, everything was closed down. So like I couldn't go to Yosemite in California because it was closed. Some of the RV parks we were meant to go to and had reservations, they closed due to COVID. So we had to change plans and just, stay in a Cracker Barrel parking lot and just make, just be flexible, right? And so long story short, we finally get out to the Grand Tetons, which is Grand Tetons and Yellowstone, are basically like two national parks right above and below each other, in Jackson, Wyoming. And we were on the way there, and the news had just announced that the National Park Service is going to be reopening this next week. And we're like, perfect. And so long story short, so it was just, I'd say it was like kind of the highlight of the trip, because here we are, we've been essentially in lockdown. Like we've just been in our RVs, even though we've been traveling, we've not gone out to eat. We've not seen many people. We're just eating our own food and our own supplies. And so we get to the national park, we get to Grand Teton National Park the day after it opened. And there was, 3 people there. It was just insane. Like seeing Old Faithful, right? Every picture you see of Old Faithful online, there is hundreds of people around this boardwalk. And there were like 3 people there. It was insane. It will never happen again. I'll never have that opportunity again. It was just great to see those parks, how they're meant to be. Like no people, just the animals doing their thing. It was incredible. So anyway, due to COVID, we had finished the trip. We were up in Michigan, and it was basically the end of the trip. And we were like, we don't want to go back home because it's just it's too populated. It's too packed. We're like, let's just stay out on the road and stay out in some more rural areas. So we stayed out on the road for another 2 months. Yeah, about 2 more months. And so now it's like September of 2020, and hurricane came and hit Louisiana. I think it was, I'm pretty sure that was Hurricane Laura in 2020 hit Louisiana, St. Charles. And that was the first storm that we went to go work as a catastrophe insurance adjuster. And so that's the thing, like that whole time, the reason I had time off of work, rather people were like, how'd you do that? I'm like, well, I made a jump. I made a leap of faith. I left doing HVAC work to do this new job without the job happening yet. We had to wait for storm season to come. And so that's why we did that trip during that time. And so anyway, so then we worked Hurricane Laura, and then Hurricane Delta came in right before, 4 or 5 weeks later, hit the same area down there in Louisiana. So we were working for 3 months. So in 2020, we did 5 months of travel and then 3 months of work. So we were in the RV for 8 months total. And we got back home to Florida in November of 2020, and first time being home in 8 months. And we get out of the truck at 11 o'clock, midnight, something like that. And we both get out of the truck and we're like, ugh, it's just humid. It's horrible. Even though Louisiana's no walk in the park. But it's November, and it was still miserable in Florida. And we were like, at that time, we both knew we didn't really want to be here anymore. We didn't want to stay there. And so then we fast forward to the 2021 trip where we did now Florida to Michigan and everything east, right up to Maine, and came down the coast and did that trip. And it was gorgeous. And that was just 2 months on the road doing that trip. And then we went to work. We got work that came in for another hurricane in Louisiana. This time kind of closer to New Orleans, like Baton Rouge area.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we went and worked that for another 2 months. So we did 5 months on the road in 2021. So 8 months the first year, 5 months the second year. It's like, we could do this full time if we really wanted to, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It's hard to convince her to do that kind of thing. But basically what happened was we knew we didn't want to be in Florida anymore. We knew we wanted to do something different, but we needed that next RV. This RV was good for those trips, but to make that transition to what we wanted to do next required a little bit different setup. 2 bathrooms, whatever we needed, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I did in 2021/2022 was buy our second RV. Sold the first one, bought the new one, and then did the 2022 trip, which was us selling the house in Florida, living in that RV essentially full time, and then finding this place.
Yeah. And during that time frame, did y'all ever feel like that, hey, we need to go back home, or it was, hey, we're gonna stop this journey, or it was just always like, hey, we're still gonna continue this?
No, that was the thing. I mean, honestly, we had no desire to go back home. It was never something that we were like, I miss home, I miss Florida. It wasn't something that we missed because, again, it's just hot, overpopulated, too many people, traffic's horrible. Life is better on the road. It was just better in these rural areas and these smaller communities.
Okay. And during that, y'all end up finding your forever place, which was Virginia. You end up getting these 40 acres. And you have this big goal that you want to do, which is you want to take one of your cousins out on this memorable trip where y'all go out and y'all do something. Can you share like what made you want to do that? Is it because you weren't there throughout the years, or is it because it's something that you wish it had been done to you, or what exactly?
Well, who wouldn't want to wish that upon themselves, right? I mean, it's just it's a great thing, but that wasn't part of it at all. It was really 2 main parts of it, right? So we did that travel for 2 years, and then we moved here and got to this place. My wife didn't want to continue to travel. It's just not her thing. She did all 48 states. We had all these memories. She wants to just be here. So, but I love traveling. I love getting on the road and doing stuff. And so I was like, well, how else can I still travel and do stuff and also maybe give back? And at the time, I was like, well, my first cousin is graduating this upcoming year, which was two summers ago. And then I was like, I looked at it between him, then my next cousin, then his brother, then my first nephew, then another cousin, then my other nephew. It's like, man, I got like 6 or 7 years in a row right now that I have like a cousin or a nephew graduating, like boom, 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 every year. So I talked to my wife about it, and I said, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to take these kids on a week trip for my cousins, 2 weeks for my nephews, and take them on a trip of like kind of that coming of age, becoming a man time frame. And not necessarily that any of them had no male influence or bad male influence or anything like that. It was just like, I just wanted to be a different male influence in their life because I'm the oldest cousin of my generation, right? So like my dad had me, and then I have a cousin who's a few years younger than me, and then another who's a few years younger than him. And then there's a big gap to then these kids that are just graduating now. So it's like being the elder cousin of the generation of Reed boys, I say. I felt like it was nice that I'm able to do it, and I enjoy it, and I want to do it, and that I have the relationship with my family to be able to do it, right? Because not everyone has that type of relationship with their cousins or with their nephews or with your cousin's parents, right? Like my other cousin, like to like, hey, give me your kid for a week. Like not everyone has that relationship, but we do. My family is very tight knit and close. And so I was like, this would be a great tradition that I'm going to start. And it's been great. This was the 3rd year just now is this trip. And it's been great.
And that's a great thing about it is that you have that close-knit, because like you said, a lot of people do not have that opportunity with their family to be able to do that. And I was going to ask that, but you kind of answered it, which how do you choose? Because in my family, there is a lot of them. I mean, nieces, nephews, cousins, they're all graduating at the same time. So I'm like, is it a Hunger Games, the best of the best? Are you putting them in a Royal Rumble? But you did kind of clarify that, hey, look, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. So With all of that being said, what is your view when it comes to the mentorship? Not everybody has that family where they have brothers, sisters, cousins, nieces, nephews. What advice do you give someone that's trying to mentor their community? What would give them that drive?
That's a good question. I look at mentorship as just being able to share your life in a positive way with whomever it is, right? Whether it's your family or it's, a Big Brother program, or you just go to a lot of people are getting into like jujitsu and stuff like that, and you're going to a gym and you're an older person and you want to take someone and be a mentor. It's just about sharing your life in a positive way with a younger generation, right? For example, my cousin I just took on this past summer for his trip, he's already got a great head on his shoulders. I mean, he's a great kid. He is in Coast Guard boot camp right now. He's never drank, smoked. I mean, he's a straight shooter, really good kid. But there's still plenty for him to learn. So while the year before I might have given different life advice to that cousin, that person 2 years ago, because of the stage of life that they're in and what they're struggling with in life, and like what they're doing next. That cousin, for example, he's playing football, and he's playing football in college to get his degree. And I said, all you got to do is not get hurt. That's right. That was my advice to him. I said, just don't get hurt, because if you get hurt, there goes your life, bro. Like that's it. Your education's done. Your career as playing football is done. And I said, I'm not telling you to not push yourself or anything like that. Like, you do whatever you feel is best there. It's not my place. Just don't get hurt. Like, don't put yourself in the position to get hurt. That's all I wanted him to be aware of. Whereas like I said, like just now with my cousin just now, like I don't need to tell him that type of stuff, because he's in a different realm right now. Yeah. So it's all situational, right? I mean, every mentorship is very situational, whether it's, kids are struggling with drug addiction because their parents were drug addicts, or if they're struggling with relationships because their parents were never in a good relationship, and just people don't know how to communicate with other human beings. It's a big problem, I think, with the younger generation, is like, because they live on their phones, they never communicate with other human beings and just have a conversation for any more than a few minutes at best. Whereas now, I mean, I don't know how long we've been on doing this, but a couple hours of a conversation, it's not hard to do, but people just don't have the skill set anymore to do it, because it's just not practiced enough.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, because I mean, a lot of people I learned throughout the year, especially outside of the Marine Corps, is my key word in life is empathy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Empathy being that I don't have to agree with someone in order to understand where they're coming from. Like, I can understand, like,
yes,
I might not agree with the stance that you have, but I can see where you're coming from. I might not agree with it. Like, one of my biggest things I always tell people is that I will always fight for the right to do anything in America, right? I'm a big Black Lives Matter person. Do I agree with someone taking a brick through a window and throwing it? No. Do I understand why a person will do it? Yes. Do I agree with it? No. Because at the end of the day, I tell people, have you ever been at that point where you were so angry that no one can stop you? Christopher Reeve was so angry. Hey, Chris, shut up before I slap you in your mouth, right? And then Chris is like, on a rampage right now. Like, no one is stopping her. I don't care if Jesus came down himself and said, hey, you stop. I'm not stopping, right? Punch a hole in the TV, whatever you want to do. No one can stop you in that moment. And as long as you can understand that people as a whole get to that moment, and we as human beings could try to explain to them, hey, you understand that this, and this is going to happen. And they say, yes, I understand it's going to happen. I don't care that I'm going to get locked up in jail for like 10 days. I have to prove my point because of what I'm feeling right now. Then why try to stop a person from doing that? They have to deal with the consequences of their action. But, I'm a big person that, hey, let's attack the system. Let's come at it this way. So I definitely agree with you when you come from that angle. So with all of that being said, Chris, I'm going to ask you this, bro. Is there anything that you're currently working on that you would like to share right now?
Well, a little bit thanks to you. Like I said, you say you thank me for where you're at now, starting the podcast, finally hitting record, and finally get going. I have been lazy. At the end of the day, that's all it's been. I've had nothing but excuses, and that's all they are. With the wedding and all these people and doing all the stuff at the house, and we did a lot of travel this past month. But my channel, like, I've not done anything in the past month on my channel because I've just been too busy. But it's at the end of the day, it's just lazy. It's me being lazy. It's me falling behind. But I was like, I need to push a little reset button. And I've been watching you and just watching your stuff blow up like crazy. I'm like, I just need to freaking click that reset button, get the channel back to where it was, and even better, I'm going to try and treat it like a job, especially when I'm not working, right? Because once I go to work, I physically don't have the time because I work nonstop. But in the summertime, when I'm not working, like, I should set myself like it's a job and grow the channel how it should be. And so I think I'm going to start a little podcast segment on that channel just to put the information out there, because you don't know what people are looking for, right? And it's like, while my educational videos of like how to do this certain project might answer a lot of questions, a normal person who's RVing, like, it's weird to me when I have conversations with people that, like, the stuff that comes up in normal conversation of like, well, how do you do this, or how do you do that, or how does that work? It's like, it's just so natural to me to do it, but to them it's out of this world. So I was like, I think I'm going to start a podcast segment, and I'm going to throw that in there and try and do 2 videos a week, one educational and one podcast, which is still educational, but that podcast episode is going to be more just in-depth talking, conversation about certain topics and subjects to try and, again, just try and get more information out there for people. They can absorb it. They don't have to absorb it. Just put it out there.
Yeah. And I'm definitely right there with you, brother. It's just about getting out there, press and play. I always tell people, between the podcast, the TikTok, the TV show I'm converting to a book, working for the government, it's a lot. But people ask me a lot of time, like, how do I manage that time? And I just keep telling them, like, you just got to learn, like, hey, even though I'm at work, there's a way I can twist work and then find a way to implement. When you're out there doing the catastrophe insurance adjuster, there's a way that you can still work with RV. Hey, I'm out here with the RV, and guess what? Today we're doing this job, and this is what I got going on. Maybe having a little camera behind you or getting some kind of latch. They have all kind of devices now, so I definitely support you on that. Besides that, is there any other thing that you want to promote before or anything like that?
No, nothing specific, brother. I just, good talking with you and good catching up.
Oh, definitely. And I appreciate it. I know we're on here 2 hours and 5 minutes. I appreciate it. But every aspect of you and your journey, brother, has been inspirational. It's going to inspire a lot of people out there, a lot of people that's thinking about doing the same route or in a different part of their life. So I want to thank you, brother. And if there's ever anything that you need from me, you definitely let me know. And I am one call away.
Yep. Same on this end.